Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Happiness and Humans. My name is Matt Phelan, and I am a co-founder of the Happiness Index. And for the first time ever, or maybe I can't remember if this is the first time ever, but I am with my co-founders of the Happiness Index on the Happiness and Humans podcast. I'm here with Chris Highland and Tony Latter. Tony, as the original co-founder, will explain what that actually means in a bit. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Matt. So my name's Tony Latter, and I'm one of the co-founders here at the Happiness Index. Kind of my day-to-day role is Chief Platform Officer. So that means I work a lot with our growth team, our customer teams, our technical community as well, to really understand what people want from our platform. And then it's about what do we build, why do we build it, and then working with our tech team on when do we schedule it, and then how do we deliver it. So that's my day-to-day role.
Thanks, Tony. Over to Chris Highland.
Thank you, Matt. Matt, that was the ultimate test. I thought, which co-founder is he going to go to first? Who is his favourite? And you've not chosen me.
That's why I caveated it, but I made sure I give a reason why I went to someone first.
Yeah. Chris, I think we all know the answer to that one.
Yeah, we do now, Tony. So I'm Chris Highland. I'm also the third co-founder by the looks of things. And my role is really focused on two aspects. Number one, the official job title is Chief Customer Officer, where really it's all around building and creating a great team to look after our customers and keep them happy. But I also feel passionate, understandably, about our culture. So I work really closely with our head of happiness and engagement and our head of people on trying to create an amazing environment for our quackers. So that's me.
Cool. And I think I should actually explain for once what I do rather than just podcast.
What do you
do?
I don't know. And Mish, shout out to Mish, who's our head of happiness and engagement. She's actually making sure we sort our own job descriptions out at the moment, which is a useful thing for any founders out there. But essentially, there's sort of three areas that I look after, which is, so we don't, at the Happiness Index, we're a bit weird. We don't have teams, we have communities. So I look after our growth community, which is the sales and marketing team. I also look after our investment rounds, which you'll see all the time. One coming up in January, if anyone wants to invest in the Happiness Index. And I also look after the global team, which is why I've gone more grey as the year's gone on. But I'll explain what we're doing on global in a bit. But a couple of questions just to kick things off, and I'll switch it round so no one thinks that there's any favourites. I'll go to you on this, Chris. What makes you happy, Chris?
Oh, I mean, I always struggle with this question, but now I'm a lot clearer this year. So there's two main things that make me happy. Number one is personal growth, which is, do I feel as a person that I'm being challenged and challenging myself every day? That's number one. And number two is positive impact. Like, it has to be in a way which I'm actually feel like, in our own little way, I'm making the world a happy place. And of course, all the family and friends stuff, but that's just a given.
Chris, I know you've signed a new personal coach, because we've always worked with Clive Highland. For those who haven't worked it out, he's Chris's dad. So it is a real family business. You've signed your own personal coach this year. Can you just tell us a little bit about why you've done that and how that works?
Yeah, so we've actually just finished. So we've been working together for 6 months. It's actually very it's very linked to our platform around happiness and engagement. I think that, like many people, when COVID hit last year, I personally kind of really struggled just being where I am today, at home every day in the same four walls. I don't think it really matters what your house is like, what your flat's like. You can live in a 10-bedroom mansion. It doesn't matter, does it? I think so. The thing for me is, I think that I felt, this is our business. I love this business, and I felt really engaged in a direction of the business, but I just lacked some elements around the happiness part, which is the energy, the emotional part, the relationship. So I just worked with my coach. I think it's funny when people work with coaches, it's a bit like you have coaching and counselling.
Yeah.
And I find sometimes that people usually presume that if you're going to bring some form of support on, it's because you're in a bad place. But that wasn't the case with me. I was in a good place, but I wanted to get to a great place. And he's just, it's just someone to listen to. Him listen to me. I automatically chose somebody that didn't know anything about me. And he's just kind of taken me on this journey where he's got me to think bigger picture. And we talk about it all the time. Like, we are probably harder than ourselves than anyone else. We always want more. We always want more. So I think it's just a good reflection. And that's why today's great. It's just an opportunity to look back on the year and kind of like see what we and our quackers and our investors have all achieved. So yeah, I would say this to anyone out there, any form of counseling, coaching is just amazing. And I would never do it with someone close to you, because you need that objective advice and that objective view. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. And Tony, what makes you happy?
Yeah. So for me, it's about adventure. So this last 2 years at the Happiness Index, with everything that's been going on with COVID and the pandemic, it has been a massive challenge. And that's the bit that I really enjoy when I think about adventure. It's never easy. There's always something that comes along your path, but it's just another hurdle to clear. And that's something that I really thrive on. I love personal challenge. I want to be the best that I can be, not just from a working perspective, but also from a family point of view as well. I want to be the best dad I can, the best husband I can, the best kind of co-founder that I can. Obviously, I'm your favorite, Matt, because of the intro that you gave to Chris earlier on. So I'm obviously ticking one box there somewhere. But I think having that adventure is really, really important, because without kind of getting too kind of sentimental or a little bit corny, that life is a journey, it is an adventure. We only get one opportunity, and it's about taking all of the opportunities that come your way. And you mentioned at the beginning, like the original co-founder. So for those people listening who don't know the history to the Happiness Index, for the first kind of year, it was me, a phone, a laptop, and that was it. And it was an idea that you had from 4P's marketing, both of you. And it was then, can we turn this into something? And the business that we are today, compared to what we started, is phenomenally different. And it is continually evolved and developed. And that's what I mean by it's an adventure. You go into something not knowing what the outcome is going to be. You just know that it's going to be rewarding, enriching, exciting along the way. And to do that, you need the support of people around you. And it's not just going on that adventure, but it's who you do it with. And both in a personal perspective, I'm really lucky that I have an amazing wife. I have amazing children. They support me in everything that I do. And from a working perspective, without getting kind of overly sentimental.
Don't make us cry. Don't make us cry, Tony.
It's amazing doing this adventure with both of you, because we've known each other now for over 21 years, which is a huge amount of time. But it's amazing being able to share this experience with somebody. So adventure makes me happy, and kind of sharing that with people close to me makes it even more special.
Tony, on the try to continue the coaching theme for a second. We talked about Chris getting coaching. You've been coaching this year, as in what is it, under-8 football? Is that right? Can you just tell us what you're doing in that coaching, and what, if anything, you get out of being a coach? Because you've talked about it a lot this year and the enjoyment from it. Can you just talk us about that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's incredibly rewarding. So I coach my son's team. They're under 9, so they're 8 and 9. They're from various different schools in the area that I live in. And what I really enjoy about it is I enjoy seeing them being able to do something that they didn't feel was possible. And gradually you start seeing them develop and say, right, I can do that. We break it down. We do one element first, then we go into a different skill, then a different skill, then we bring it all together. And you see them growing and developing, and the confidence that they get from that is incredible. But the key thing that I try to do with the team is I try to get them to understand that it's not about them as individuals. It's about the role that they play as a unit together. And children aren't always particularly good at that. Everyone wants to have the ball, everyone wants to shoot, everyone wants to take every throw, and etc. But it's trying to see that the collective of a team is far more powerful than that of an individual. And the bit that I really want to work with them on, and it kind of comes into the kind of, without kind of going too much into our mission of freedom to be human, is kind of equipping them for how can they deal with situations in their life that aren't just about football, but what lessons can they learn from being around a team, being individuals that they can then take into life lessons. So we talk a lot about respect, personal choice, opportunities, making sure that they feel that they have, even though they're children, they have the opportunity to express themselves, and they have that kind of that psychological safety that they can go and do what they need to do, and that the team are going to be there to support them. So there's lots of parallels, even though they're kind of like an under-9s team. There's lots of parallels between that and actual teams in the workplace, etc. And in a weird way, I've kind of been running my own little experiment of our neuroscience model and using that on kind of the children. Obviously, we've got to change the way that we express ourselves, etc., because you're dealing with children and rather than adults. But it's been really interesting that these concepts are universal.
Yeah. The team have asked me to ask myself these questions. So, Chris, can you ask me what makes me happy, please?
Yeah.
No problem. So Matt, what makes you happy?
Oh, great question, Chris. Well, I've answered that question loads before, and it's freedom. And I think that for me links into being an entrepreneur, and also why I enjoy working with you guys, because you let me just make mistakes and get on and do my thing. But the thing that I've started saying recently, which sounds funny when I say it, which is signed new contracts is what makes me happy. Which if my family were like, obviously my family number one and everything, but the reason I've started saying that is because like we're really cutting edge with the neuroscience stuff. We're like beyond cutting edge when you look at like the quantum physics and mechanics stuff we're using in the workforce, which blows people's brains. But if we weren't signing new contracts on a regular basis, and December's been a brilliant month, everything that we were talking about would just be in theory and be nice. And for me, the best case study the happiness index can ever be is that by treating your people well, we can grow this really profitable, growing business. Whereas if we don't do that, we're not proving our own model that if you look after your people, they look after your customers, and your business will naturally grow. So my answer to that is spanking brand new clients, and just so I also don't sound like new customers only, renewals. Like we had a renewal of one of our customers yesterday. That proves over time that what we're doing it validates what we do. So I'm going to flip it round.
Just jump on that. I think it's an element. I think the feeling is so good because it's that feeling of someone putting faith in us, isn't it? Like it's obviously I'm the same, and we're all the same. Like not just from a sales perspective, but when someone signs on that dotted line, so to speak, either to work with us or to continue working with us, you feel that sense of responsibility. It's that kind of faith that we're going to work with you to get it right. So, you're right. It's the ultimate kick.
Yeah. And it comes back to what you mentioned earlier, Chris, about positive impact. And that's why when we get these renewals coming through, that is the main motivator for all of us, isn't it? It's not the retained revenue. It's the fact that we know that what we are doing is having an impact on people. We are firm believers in what we do, being a happiness and engagement platform. It's not one versus the other. It's a combination of the two.
Yeah.
And being able to see companies who come on that journey and will sign up with us to then see the impact that we have. And I was talking to one of our customer success managers earlier this week, and they just mentioned something that I thought was really, really interesting, where they talk about it's not just in the workplace that this has the impact, but people have families, they have friends, people they live with, and you see that ripple effect that goes all the way through, that we spend so much time and our energy in our work. If we can make that the best possible place for our employees to be, that feeling goes home with them. Yeah. It has an impact, not just on them as an individual at work, but it has a really positive impact on everybody around them.
Yeah. So I'm going to channel Jackie Dial, who's one of our amazing team, revolutionized our business in many ways. Merry Christmas, Jackie, if you're listening. Jackie brought the concept of a retro into our business, like really looking at what we could have done better. So I want to do a 2021 retro. I'll keep floating around. So Tony,
yeah,
if let's look in your area then of the sort of the platform, the technology, and everything.
Yeah.
What could have gone better this year? Would you say?
I think we've delivered a huge amount, and I think that if I look back, we actually did a retro session earlier about our latest release. I think the types of things.
Tony, what is the latest release for those that don't know?
Yeah, so a couple of months ago, we had a big neuroscience upgrade into our platform. So that was really about linking our neuroscience methodology and model and bringing that into our platform. So we did that a couple of months ago. That has been a complete game changer. Not just for us, but there's nothing else in the market that offers that. Our latest release was just the next iteration of that. So we launched, and then how do we make something that's good into something great? And we launched that a couple of weeks ago. So we naturally did our retro behind it. I think one of the key things that has been a challenge for us is being able to deliver at the pace that we are growing. And I don't like the phrase kind of maintaining our culture, because that kind of implies that it can't get any better. But how do we keep enhancing our culture as we grow, knowing that there's always pressures of deadlines as well? And I think that's been the hardest part for us this year, certainly within our tech community. And that's something that we will always keep improving on and always keep trying to strive for. So I think probably that's been our kind of hardest thing that we've done this year, but also probably the thing that we could do the most and improve upon next year is making sure that as we are developing, me as a leader in that area, Matt Stannard as our CTO, we're really providing that enablement for our team and giving them every best possible chance to succeed.
Do you think if Matt Stannard was on, he would say going to watch Ipswich away at Barrowtown and watching them lose 2-0 as something that could have gone better?
Yeah, I would have said so. So for those of you who don't know Matt, our CTO, Matt is a massive Ipswich Town fan. And he drove a 10-hour journey.
Oh, no.
A 600-mile round trip this Wednesday to go and see Ipswich play in an FA Cup replay against a team far lower than them in the football hierarchy. And they lost 2-0. So it was a very long drive home for him, which I do feel for him massively, because I know how much that means for him. And yeah, a real big challenge, and definitely something that could have gone better.
That is pure love, isn't it? Pure love.
Yeah.
So Chris, let's just have a think about our customers for a second. From your perspective, what could have gone better, do you think, this year?
Well, it's a tough question, but I had a bit more time to think about it while I listened to Tony. I think inevitably I would love to retain every single one of our customers, but that's not always the case. Even though this year we've had a really strong year, like 95% of our customers will stay with us, which is amazing. And obviously, any customers listening, thank you for your loyalty. What could we've done better? I think, there's been the Great Resignation. We talk about a lot. COVID. Sometimes it's quite hard in a customer team that you can add so much value to a customer. You could be on a great journey, and then suddenly, overnight, the main person might leave there. And actually, we've had some instances where the whole team has left, either from leaving for a new venture, or because of COVID, a company's cost cutting. So what could we've done better? It's a hard one in some respects. I think even trying to build more customers into our community. I know customers really value learning from each other and hearing other similar stories, so maybe that's one.
Yeah. Tony, can you ask me the same question, please?
Yeah. So Matt, in your role, what do you think could have gone better in 2021?
Great question, Tony. I think I'll just put the multiple hats on. I'll just start with the global team for a second, which is, I think we underestimated how long some of the translation pieces would take. So for those that don't know the business, the two of the big growth areas this year have been France and Latin America. And it's one thing getting the translations done. It's another thing making sure we understand what our very complex models sound like globally. So it's one thing understanding neuroscience in your native language. It's another thing explaining that in a different language to a different market that have different levels of understanding.
Yeah.
So I think we underestimated how long that would take, and massive credit to Pam in South America and Khadija in France for like sticking with that. But now as we move into new markets, I think that I would say we should launch 3 months later than all of the plans, because there's some groundwork stuff that I think that next time I would do more. You going to say something on that, Chris?
Yeah, I was just thinking actually around the other hat I wear, as you guys know, the culture hat.
Yes.
Around our quackers, and just thinking about, and actually, Matt, does people know what when I say quackers, what they mean?
No, I think you should explain.
Yeah.
So, so if you think of Google, there's Googlers, lots of different names for your employees of a company. I think it was last year. Was it last year or the year before? Maybe 2 years.
We were on the way back from our first Brighton away trip.
That was 2 years ago. We just wanted to have more of an identity around who we were. If you listen to this and Google a quokka, you'll see this really happy animal that lives in Australia, I think.
Yep.
That's simple as that. It was just it's unofficially the happiest animal in the world, and everyone just voted that's what we should be called. So we affectionately call our employees quokkas. So just to clear that up. But yeah, the one thing we've learned or could have gone better for our culture, I think, we've all done this before, as in we've all been leaders in different roles in the past and different businesses. But I think in this new world, which is remote communication, I think you cannot communicate enough. Like back in the day, back in pre-COVID days, sometimes you just grab people into a meeting room, or you just have a little huddle, or you have a little town hall. It's very hard. It's a lot harder to do that now. Even though that we've kind of been, hybrid, we've been in the office, out the office. But right here today, obviously the advice in the UK is work from home. So I think the one lesson for us is you cannot communicate enough when you have a distributed workforce.
Yeah. And I think, Matt, that's one of the major challenges that we've found within the tech community as well. We have people who live on the South Coast, in East Anglia, Liverpool, kind of all over the UK. So we don't have that kind of central place that everybody comes to day in, day out. And obviously with the challenges of COVID as well, communication is a major challenge, not just for us, but all businesses. And I think it's one of the things that we see come out from our cultural assessment results is a constant theme about how do you just keep engaging and communicating with the team in a world that's rapidly changing, and the future of work. What would that look like moving forward? I think this is going to be a massive challenge for all businesses.
Yeah, and so we'll flip it around. We'll stick with you then, Tone. What's gone well this year?
Without doubt, the neuroscience upgrade has been absolutely massive for us as an overall business. And I think the main reason for that is we've talked a lot about neuroscience and our methodology. And up to probably, we released in June the neuroscience upgrade. And up to that point, there's an element of a disconnect between what we say and then being able to visualize that into the platform. Whereas with the neuroscience upgrade, it's seamless now. We call ourselves a happiness and engagement platform. The way in which the platform now works, you see a happiness score, you see an engagement score. They're the first things you see when you come in. You then see your scores related to the neuroscience themes as well. So that has been huge for us this year, not only in terms of a technical challenge of delivering that, but I think it's given a huge amount of confidence into our customer teams, our growth teams. We get amazing feedback from customers and prospects, which is unbelievable and kind of very humbling when you hear that coming through, because all of the hard work that everybody's put into it, it's really nice to hear that coming through. And again, I think one of the major points has been developing the team. I talked about it being kind of as we grow. It's something that is we could absolutely have done that better, but I am actually very proud of how we have grown that team within the tech community. If I think about that from kind of a day-to-day perspective, we've more than doubled that team. if we go back out into kind of the other hats we wear as co-founders, we've gone from something like 15 to about 36 quackers now since April. So it's not even over the full year.
And that's just UK as well, Tone.
Yeah, that's just UK. And then when we bring in like Pam, for example, as you've mentioned, we've got Khadija, we have partners that we work elsewhere that are all part of our ecosystem. We're up to around 45 people who are what I would consider quackers and part of our organization. And so that is something that I think has been incredibly successful for us this year.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of my challenges for next year, because all those teams are massively expanding. And although we don't employ everyone directly, you're getting to we're easily to 100 quackers when you add like the people that Raj and Namrata have recruited in India. We're working with external marketing providers and stuff like that. So we won't get into next year just yet. Chris, I just want to give you, I went to one of your customers one of your new customers, a first review where I was trying to segue in from Tony, where they got their cultural assessment data. Rosanna was presenting it back to them. So it's the first time they had all their employee engagement data presented to them in a neuroscience way. And the only way I can describe it to our listeners, for a company that has their first cultural assessment, it would be like, imagine if you're a listener, imagine I tracked down everyone that you ever met in your life, and I asked them to anonymously tell me how they feel about you. Then I sat you in a room for 2 hours, and then I read it all out and showed you a load of dashboards. It was stunned silence at points. There was shock. There was people were proud of what they had and so on. And ultimately, at the end, a really engaged team that wanted to improve their culture. But like, what's gone well? I mean, you're working on because we often think about stuff from a technical perspective, but you're in with a human element of what this data actually means. Like, what's gone well from that perspective? Do you resonate with that story? You must see that all the time with customers.
Yeah, massively. I think that as soon as we win a customer, I think it's so different to where we were a few years ago, which is customers or companies now understand that anything to do with culture is a journey. It's not just a one. The worst thing you could possibly do is ask how your people feel and then do nothing about it. But I always have a lot of admiration for some of these big companies. I mean, you guys know we work with small to medium to large, but I always have admiration for any people leaders or CEOs that start working with us, because that in itself is a commitment straight away to making that culture better and to giving people a voice.
Yeah.
So I think what I see a lot of is usually we'll work, ahead. The first culture assessment goes out, they get some great information back, some great insight, and then we usually join them in either reporting to the management team or the board or the CEO. And that first session, we always see, our contacts, so to speak, like the HRD or the HR manager or the chief people officer. They're always quite nervous, because it's exactly what you said. Some of the insight is not necessarily what they want to hear. It's not going to be great, but the whole point in engaging with us is trying to understand how your people feel and then improving things in a specific way. So just like you were talking earlier about how you get a kick from the new deals or existing deals, I actually only had a conversation a few weeks ago with the customer success team, and they were saying they get kicks from those board meetings, from those board presentations, because when we're not in there with opinions, are we? We're not saying, well, we think we should do this, you should do that. It's data driven. It's their own employee insight. So I love doing those meetings, and I always find that after the first session together, we kind of form a bit of a bond, and that fingers crossed. That's why we have great customer loyalty. But long may it continue.
Yeah,
and sorry, go on, Tom.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Chris, when I go into those meetings, there's a particular phrase that I think of, and it's the perception versus reality.
Yeah.
So what is the perception of the people in that room, i.e. what do they think of the organization and the leadership, the scores, etc., versus what's the reality? And often you get this point where the perception versus the reality is quite different. Yeah. And it's that light bulb moment. It's that almost moment of realization that actually either confirming what we're doing is the right thing to do, and it gives them confidence to be bolder and braver in their decision making.
And do you know what? That's actually what happened recently. But actually, there wasn't not many surprises, but that was brilliant for them because they had a gut feel. They felt that they had an area, an issue in their business, maybe around trust, acknowledgement as the company was growing.
Yeah.
So then the fact that they could actually do the culture assessment with us, it was vindication for them. And now it's like, right, we now know the data's also backing up our gut feel. Let's go ahead. So we get customers who are really, really surprised, and some customers are like, oh, okay, actually, that's good. That's what I thought.
Yeah, and that's the great thing. You get that confirmation, as you've just mentioned there, or you get the contradiction, which is the bit where it's, oh, that's not what I felt or I thought our culture was like. And actually, it's in those moments that you really see the test in the leadership of an organization.
Yeah.
And how do they then adapt the organization? How do they often have to go through a little bit of kind of soul searching themselves as a leadership team on how they are leading a business. But the turnarounds that we hear, not just in overall organizational performance, but also the individual stories that we get fed back to us, that's something that's incredibly empowering.
That's why I love that quote that I shared from Soconomics on Discord today, which is data is the plural of anecdote. And the reason I love that is because that is testing that. Does the company, is this confirmation bias, or is this new data, or whatever it is? Because as a leader, you will have a few stories around what's going on. And those anecdotes can be powerful, but until you've tested the data, you don't really know. And that's where I think those meetings are so powerful. The one that I'll share in this area on what's gone well this year is might sound like an odd one, but we were talking about this yesterday, weren't we? Which is, I don't know if this is because, one, I need the data on it, I suppose. One, because we have an open culture, or two, because we have a very multi-generational, diverse team, or it's been a horrific year just generally. But I've never, we've been running businesses for 15 years now. I've never known an employee group to be impacted by so many personal problems, from grandmas, granddads, parents, cousins. There's been a lot going on with our quackers in their lives, including our freeze families and everything like that, and how open everyone's been and how much that's been shared. So for me, what's gone well is that I keep thinking we're open, but the amount people share now about what's going on in their lives, I just see as a massive positive. And I hope that never goes away, because people don't mind sharing when they're having a rough day or they're having a bad time or whatever. And that's what I put as the positive. So I'm going to move us forward, because we've got another session at 12 o'clock. So I'm not going to ask you for your New Year's resolutions, because we're not at that point yet. But I'm going to ask you, what you think is the most important thing at the Happiness Index to happen next year in your area or as co-founder. So I'll go order Tony, Chris, me on that one.
It's funny, Matt, isn't it? How you're always going last to getting more thinking time.
I'll go first.
No, so I think next year, again, challenge will be around enhancing our culture as we grow. It's something that we experienced this year. We'll continue to keep experiencing that. But I feel really confident in the way that we can just keep improving the culture as we grow. Things, as you mentioned just there, people being really open. We're all massive believers that there aren't two parts of us. There isn't a Matt or Chris that goes to work and then a Matt and Chris that comes home from work. We know that what impacts people in work impacts them externally, and vice versa. So I think as we continue to grow, how do we keep maintaining, or not maintaining, but enhancing that sentiment of being able to be open, being able to share, being supportive? And these are growing pains, as we tend to talk a lot about in our kind of Tuesday meetings that we have together. But ultimately, it will be, how do we keep developing and incredible culture with incredible people, and how do we keep making sure that everybody that we continue to bring in, and as we grow our new quackers, how do we make sure that they keep adding something new to our culture? And I think that's going to be a big challenge for us moving forward.
Chris, thank you, Tony.
So yeah, I guess with my culture hat on first, it's the P word, which I used to hate back in the day, called process, or maybe framework. But you know, I think the biggest realization for me across everything, but particularly cultural, is when your workforce is just all around the country and all around the world. If you're not following some form of process, it's just chaotic. And I think Mish, nod to Mish on that one. She knows what I'm talking about. So I think we have a great culture, but what we're doing, we're scaling. So I think that my kind of favorite word these days tends to be framework, which is just giving everyone as consistent employee experience as humanly possible. So that's the people side. From a customer side, you know, by the end of this financial year for us, which is March, we're going to be 100 customers, which is absolutely amazing and something we're really proud of. And what I want to do is I want to build a more of a community within those customers.
Yeah.
You know, the ideal world is that we do a lot more face-to-face interactions, as in real life. I still think there's just, for me personally, and there's nothing better than forming a real bond with just a person face-to-face, but not just face-to-face. You know, a lot of the world now is online. So for me, it's just more around how can I add more value to our customers, not through us, but through the customer community, so they can learn from each other, basically.
It was an interesting point you mentioned there, Chris, about process, because often the perception of process is it's red tape and it's something that gets in the way. The reality is that process gives people safety. It allows you to understand what support is available to you. And it's so important to invest in those processes, those frameworks, because that's the bit that underpins everything that happens within an organization. If you get that psychological safety right, everything else can be built upon that. It's an amazing foundation to have.
Exactly that. We've learned it's the foundation of our house. And if it's not there, it can be a little bit like quicksand. So we're trying to keep that nice solid foundation.
I think, was it Gemma Shambler would always say clarity is kindness, was always her point, wasn't it? We miss you, Gemma, by the way. We can't wait till you come back. For me, I'm obviously in my head, I've got the Lightning investment round coming up in January. But what that makes me think about is the importance that we always say that there shouldn't be a difference between what we say internally and what we say externally. So for those that have ever seen our investment rounds, I don't create what's called an investment memorandum. I just take our internal plan and present it to people external and say, if you believe in this journey, get involved. But outside of like what's in my head, what I'm thinking, oh geez, I've got to do all that in January, I'm just going to pick the F word out, which is fun. We say we want to be a zebra, not a unicorn, don't we? And we're getting good valuations and stuff, how people perceive the business and stuff. But I just want to make sure we're having fun. One of the biggest things we started talking about this year was permission to leave. Like most people talk about retaining their staff. We talk a lot about making sure every single person who works for us always has the permission to leave and they don't stay just because they feel like they should. And that the same as founders. Like for me, I look at every week, and if I've had fun and I'm happy, I'm sticking around. And I never commit to standing at the Happiness Index to Chris and Tony more than a week out. But I'm loving it. I always love it. But I just want to make sure we continue that fun element, which I think can be underestimated sometimes in business. So I just want to finish off by finding out the most important question, which is, what is your favorite Christmas movie?
Really simple one for me. Home Alone. Good
choice.
Yeah, that's one I thought of as well, but I will go for Miracle on 34th Street. Is it 34th Street? It's a 30-something street, but it's a Christmas cracker.
I mean, Elf is up there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definite. And so is Muppets Christmas Carol, but they're joint to Die Hard 2. And I know most people think Die Hard, but I like Die Hard 2 because I like how much he moans about how it's the second Christmas that's been ruined.
Yeah.
So yeah, just wanted to note to all our listeners and anyone that's watching this on YouTube, because I'm sure it'll go on there, just thank you so much for taking the time. Please drop us a message if you want clarity on anything we said, and we can't wait to for 2022. And as we say on our company updates, it's time to quack off.
Yeah. Cheers, Matt. Cheers, Chris.
Cheers, guys. Catch you later.